Hi, welcome to the Armed Guardian podcast. I'm your host, Bryan, here with David, and we've got back as a return guest, Bryan Eastridge. If people that don't remember, he came on uh, earlier this year talking about revolvers, or no, it was last year, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was late last year. Talking about revolvers and their viability in a semi-automatic world today as a self-defense weapon. So if you haven't heard that one, check our previous episodes and listen to Bryan. But today we've got Bryan on to talk about lever action rifles and are they a viable option for home defense or even self-protection? So without any further ado, how you doing, Bryan?
I'm doing well, man. Just enjoying retired life
Yeah,
and the busyness that entails.
yeah.
So,
And you've had some family changes since we last talked too.
oh
So,
yeah.
but how you doing, David?
Doing good. Doing good.
Good. Yeah, David rushed here after he got off work this evening and still pulling that day shift, but we'll let him slide. He got here in time, so
Yeah, I like it pretty good.
yeah.
Bryan, I like to leave her gun. I like watching the old Western movies. Uh, John Wayne's one of my favorites, Clint Eastwood. But I guess in your opinion, what has led to the lever action being relevant today? It's been out since the 1800s, about a century and a half. So, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I got a couple of different takes on that. And one of them may surprise you, but the number one thing I see, and I'll never forget when Midwest Industry started making forearms for Marlins, right? It's been 10, 12 years ago. And I thought, what a goofy thing to do. Yet they were far ahead of the power curve when it comes to that, because right now about 50% of the population of the US lives in a state or an area where it is grossly restrictive to own a semi-automatic rifle. So what's the next best thing? Lever gun, right? And I think the tech had kind of fallen off and had not really had any major improvement other than, maybe machine work, tolerances, things like that in the manufacturing side for like 100 years. So uh, the other thing is, how many of us own like multiple modern sporting rifles, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like saying, oh, I've got a Honda Accord. Oh, and you know what? I just bought another Honda Accord. And oh, but wait, this one is in candy apple red with metallic paint. At
Yeah.
a certain point, they all do the same thing. Um, Now, I love, the last 15, 20 years of development on the modern sporting rifle or AR platform with multiple calibers, short action and long action now with 308, 6.5 Creedmoor, 6.5 Grendel, 224 Valkyrie. I mean, the possibilities, they ran wild. Um, the but I think people kind of got bored with them. And I'll say that the same as say with revolvers. I think I'm seeing this uptick with revolvers because how many more polymer striker fired platforms can we really have before anybody goes, oh, that one's awesome?
Yeah.
They all kind of fall into the realm of they do the same thing,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. And I'm not knocking companies that put their entire, you know, all their eggs in the polymer striker fired basket, but we're seeing the same thing with 1911s, right? Like 25, 30 years ago, a polymer hammer fired 1911 was an oddity. And you might see some dude that, had a Learjet as his second vehicle that shot some type of STI or an SV or something like that. There was a real limited space. And now we've seen those come to prominence when it's not really a new concept, right? But I think people have just gotten bored with the polymer striker fired world. And I love polymer striker fired guns. I've got a pile of them, right? Um, as well as single action hammer fired polymer guns now. So the lever gun and the revolver and the lever gun were just kind of the next natural progression in that lineage of, well, we've already seen this movie enough times. Let's go back and revisit history and see what we can do with that. So I think that's a large part of it. But the biggest thing I think that's driving it right now is just, you get north of I-40, there's a lot of states that do not care to have modern sporting rifles and even if you can own them, the stigma behind them and or the perceived stigma, and then the legalities and the hurdles you have to jump through just to own one, really put a damper on the availability and the popularity of them.
So, what are some of the pros and cons of lever actions over other types of rifles, bolt actions, semi-automatic, especially with the modern sporting rifle?
Well, the pros over bolt action are pretty simple. You can put more ammunition in the gun.
Oh yeah.
And it's a lot more rapidly deployable system. The cons are you're probably not going to get an 800 plus yard lever gun. It just doesn't exist currently. Inside of really 300 yards, they're awesome. So, and if you look at the context of that, I mean, what are we like, even hunting? Is it ethical to take somebody out and go, hey, there's a deer at 500 yards. I think you can hit it. Probably not. But inside of that 100-yard window, they're dominant. They're really, really good. As far as semi-auto rifles, I'll never try to make the argument that it's better to have a lever gun than a semi-auto, especially inside of that 100-yard window. Is it the next best thing? Probably. And if you look at the manual of arms, they're very, very similar to a shotgun. And I attribute that one to Lee Weems. He and I had a deep conversation about it. And he's like, when it comes to slugs and a pump gun and a lever gun, you're really looking pretty equally yoked there, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the window that I like to look at them through is practical engagement distances of game animals, right? Mm-hmm. As far as inside the home, they really fall into the realm of the shotgun. That's kind of where they live, to me.
Yeah.
Now, one of the big pros is lever guns. You have a wide variety of cartridges. You can go pistol caliber all the way to really edging into that high-powered rifle range, especially if you go into like 300 Savage or some of those other obscure cartridges. But that's also a con. Ammo availability of 300 Savage. It knocks on the door of 308, but you can't go to Academy Sports or Walmart and expect that they're going to have, 50 rounds of that cartridge. So, but it really fills that gap, I feel like, where between a handgun and a bolt gun, which is also the same space that a shotgun lives in. That's, for me, that's where it really shines.
Well, and we I know we had talked about this before, but with the speed, with the bolt action, it's a lot slower because you're having to cycle the bolt manually. The lever action, you're still manually having to cycle it, but you can cycle it at a higher rate than the bolt action. And it's not as fast as a true semi-automatic or MSR, but you can get pretty darn close with practice, if I remember us talking.
And to me, another thing I think is like when you're throwing a bolt, you have to come off your grip, off the trigger guard, and you've got to throw that bolt and then get back on. With the lever action, as you move that lever, you're coming right back where you, I mean, yeah, you're having to come out unlike semi-automatic, but you're moving right back into position naturally
Right.
with the motion of working the action.
Yeah, you're not completely losing contact with the gun like you would be running a bolt. And now I've met some dudes that were sassy and gals that were sassy at running a bolt gun, right? Um, I don't think you have to break the position as bad because that bolt is not really coming back at your face as much as like hand bolt, bolt lever, all those things. Um, However, now like Beretta's doing a straight pull, Savage is doing a straight pull that you can run really similar to a lever gun and you can reach out with those guns. They've kind of perfected that whole inline bolt thing with like 6.5 Creedmoor and some of those other really long distance cartridges.
Hmm.
Uh, so I think that kind of gets negated a little bit, but you're into the niche of the bolt gun world, right? You're not into the mainstream. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And to me, a lever gun and a pump shotgun, the lever gun gives you a little more distance over a pump shotgun, but with a really similar manual of arms and a similar operational time on the gun. Like how much time you're taking to actually, unlock, eject, extract, relock, and be ready to fire. It's really similar to like a Remington 870 or a 590 Mossberg, right? It's kind of in that window.
So, what brand, if any, is your favorite when it comes to lever guns? And I guess why? I know you may have a couple for different purposes, hunting, self defense, but your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm kind of I won't put it into brand so much as pattern. So you've got Winchester pattern, Marlin pattern, are the big two, right? That's the two that are just preeminent throughout the industry. Now Henry's got some different stuff, and Henry's got everything from the 1873 Winchester pattern into their own kind of pattern of gun. Totally get it. But for me, I like Marlin pattern guns, and Marlin pattern guns have a fixed top strap. They have a side eject fixed top strap. Winchester's kind of top eject, right? There's no fixed metal across the top of the bolt. I like the Marlin pattern just because of the ease of accessorizing the sights, which is something that it's only been recently that factories are offering OEM sights that I feel like are adequate or are beneficial. Basically, a rear peep, ghost ring, as we call it on a shotgun, with some type of high vis front sight or a front sight that's pretty prominent. So the Marlin patterns for me are much more adaptable to that than the Winchester pattern guns. Winchester pattern guns, and that could be like the Rossi R92, right, is a Winchester pattern gun. The R95 now is a Marlin pattern gun. But Marlins, to get a peep sight back close to your eye, require, or I'm sorry, Winchesters require that you either drill and tap the receiver. There's some gunsmithing involved.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a Marlin, they've got scope mount screws, and our buddy Andy Larson over at Skinner Sights has kind of cracked all the code on that. So that's my favorite. And whether that be the 336 and 3030 or a pistol caliber 94, I'm really big on the pistol caliber Marlin patterns. I think that's kind of where we all start, and that's where we all come back to at some point.
Oh, and that actually kind of leads well into the next question. Talking about the pistol calibers, what are the pros and cons of pistol calibers versus rifle calibers when it comes to lever actions?
Oh wow, that's a deep rabbit hole, David.
Well,
man.
But
I will tell you,
an interesting one.
Yeah, like for me, this is one man's opinion, right? I've had 4570 pattern guns, 35 Remington, 3030. They're cool. They do what they're supposed to do, right? Throw a big heavy bullet a long distance. But for me to fill that void of pistol to intermediate range, the pistol caliber carbines are where it really shines. And I'm talking 45 long Colt, 44 mag, 454 Casull. I have a 454 Casull, and 357 Magnum. My favorite of which is a 357 Magnum. And the main reason is you don't have the punishing recoil that you have with a rifle cartridge in that platform. And I say punishing, that's subjective, right? But if we look at a 357 Magnum, it just to me fills so many gaps. And it's one of those cartridges that is, to me, really overpressured for a handgun and is perfect in a lever gun. But if you got to carry both, or if you got to carry something that has cartridge interchangeability, the 357 mag is the way to go. Now, rifle cartridges, I love 4570. However, 4570 was built in the black powder era. So the pressure of that cartridge, where it shines, is shooting heavier bullets at I say lower velocities, but moderate velocities. Whereas you get a 454 pistol caliber lever gun, you can get into the lighter bullets of 4570 on a shorter action cartridge. So, there's some real plus there. Plus, you have the interchangeability of being able to throw 45 Colt and get a couple extra rounds in the gun. So, and a little extra powder burn in the barrel. So, but where I really feel like it's the strongest is in that 357 mag. Everybody should own a 357 lever gun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So with that being said, is the lever action, do you feel like, and we've talked about this a little bit, so I mean, but maybe we could expound on it a little more, maybe.
Yeah.
But is it a viable self-defense weapon? And I guess, why? Your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And they're 50 state legal, right? Like, if somebody told me you have to go to a gunfight right now, I'm going to take a shoulder mounted weapon, right? If I could predict my gunfight, if JDAMs were out and indirect artillery is out, the next best thing is a shoulder fired gun, a shoulder mounted platform. If you told me it's inside of 100 yards and I can't take a semi-auto, it's going to be a lever gun. Maybe a shotgun. If you said, hey, the longest shot you're going to take is 25 yards. We got to go do X, Y, and Z, and it's 25 yards. Okay, give me a pump shotgun or a semi-auto shotgun. Or if I live in a state where a semi-auto is not cool, give me a pump shotgun, right? That's kind of where that intermediate distance is where those guns really shine. So that's just, it's one man's opinion, right? Like, but that's probably, as far as a home defense gun, the manual of arms is almost what a pump shotgun is, right? Load the mag tube, let the hammer let the hammer down, load the mag tube, and get after it. Go do work if you need to. And really inside of home defense distances, buckshot versus slugs versus pistol caliber, whatever. I love buckshot. However, if that's not an option, yeah, absolutely. And I think defensive work with a lever gun is almost equal to a shotgun. Some people will disagree. I get it. There's nothing says I love you like, 9 pellet triple aught, but if maybe that's not an option, then yeah, absolutely. A 357, 158 jacketed soft point is a pretty good alternative to that, especially out of a 16 plus inch barrel.
Yeah. And I guess another thing to me is I think that, it's, you know, when people see it, the optics are a lot better. If I have a 30-30 in the truck, or even a 357 Magnum lever action versus a, AR in a lot of places, the AR seems to draw more, I guess, attention, maybe.
Well, if you did use one in certain states, they're going to say it's a Marlin AR-15 and 30-30. I mean, Glocks and AR-15s, that's like an interchangeable media blast, right? But now if it's a camo pattern Beretta shotgun, does anybody care?
Yeah.
If it's a lever gun, does anybody really care? It's got wood. What's that? It's wood and metal. Who does that? It's a wood and metal Glock. I mean, I think I'm 100% in agreement that the optics, especially if you're in a state that is AR unfriendly or semi-automatic unfriendly, Illinois, but the optics of that in the home. Oh, well, man, this is my deer rifle, and somebody broke into my house, and I used my deer rifle to defend it. It does not conjure the negative perception that a blacked out rifle does, with a 30 round magazine, right? And that's not to say that I am anti AR or 30 round standard capacity mag. I am not.
Yeah.
I own multiple versions of those because I live in free America south of I-40, but or south of the the communist line or whatever you want to call it. But I can say, with a lot of confidence after being a cop, that it definitely does not have the same perception that a semi-automatic modern sporting rifle does. It does not ping people's radar nearly as bad. And that goes even into like the semi-auto pistol versus a revolver conversation, right? If you take the viewpoint of what do our, liberal American views look at a handgun for concealed carry, they kind of think of like the NYPD blue detective, special gun or something, the Adam 12 revolver, whatever it is. Right. But, so I definitely think the public perception of it is much less impactful than, a striker fired semi-auto with an 18 plus round magazine and a rifle with a 30 plus round magazine. I don't agree with it, but it's the world we live in, right? So
yeah, I agree. And I think, we have to adapt. And also, I mean, the wood grain, to me, the wood grains are always prettier, the wood stocks.
And
even the stainless steel, the wood stainless steel looks good to me.
And I can tell you, I have actually sat in a murder trial where a semi-auto short AK pistol was used, and the looks on the jurors' faces when I introduced that gun was like, "Oh my God." And when I actually did the safety checks on it and all that, and hey, this isn't a fully automatic rifle, people were just almost on the edge of their seats looking just by the looks of it. I've been in other court cases where a bolt action 22 rifle was used and people kind of like, okay, moving on. Like it did not have this resounding effect of that's evil, regardless of what us gun people know about that. Right. So, and really, if you look at a short AK and you look at a 357 mag lever gun, they look different, but ballistically, they're not.
Right.
So, for those of us in the home defense world or the personal defense world, a 357 lever gun versus a 10-inch chop down no stock pistol AK, ballistically that lever gun's doing a little bit more, bit more magic. So anyway.
Yeah. So, and we've kind of talked about this. You mentioned the 357 was your favorite caliber, and I can definitely see why. But is there anything else, I guess, you'd like to add about home defense rifle as far as the caliber? What's, I guess, the most viable option, or anything else for on that?
Well, really, if you think about this 357 Magnum, it was the cop cartridge from probably about mainstream from probably about 1965, 70 until about 1989 or 90. So people hear, oh, it's a 357 Magnum. It's what the cops carried. Now, granted, it goes back in history way further than that, but a little nugget is when you throw a 38 plus P in a 357 lever gun, it's doing what that nasty 357 mag is doing in your 4-inch service gun. And then you put a 357 mag full tilt load in your 357 mag 16-inch carbine lever gun, and it's doing almost 30-30. It's 7.62 by 39 territory. Without the stigma of it looks like something designed in China or Russia, straight wall, 35 caliber. Like it just, to me, it's a bit disarming when you see, grandpa's deer gun used in a home defense situation. But I'm a very big proponent of a 357 lever gun. I think it's a fantastic, you could do away with all other lever guns. I'd be fine with the 357 lever gun. So even shooting 38s.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
And I can dive into a deep rabbit hole on that.
Well, I mean, hey, I'm enjoying it. So I guess now we can talk a little bit about accessories. I mean, I know now it seems like as we're seeing more with more lever actions with rail systems and stuff like that. So, what's your thought on some accessories for the rifles these days? The rifles are coming with more, things to utilize the accessories. I guess, what are some of them to optimize the use? What would you use? What would you recommend? Your thoughts on any of that?
On a long gun, I like a light.
Yeah.
I shotgun, rifle, it doesn't matter. I like a light. I don't like lights on handguns for a litany of reasons, right. But now we're starting to see, like, Smith & Wesson just came out with that 1854 stainless, and it's a Marlin pattern. But they consulted with some dudes that were like, hey, how should we do the forearm? Well, put a piece of M-lock on each side so we can get a QD sling swivel and we can get a light on it. Other than that, leave it alone. But for me, for most of the stuff I use a lever gun for, I could take or leave a light. But a sling is almost a non-negotiable thing, right? Much like a shotgun, whatever ammo is in the gun or on the gun is what you're going to fight with. So I do like what we call a butt cuff, which simply rugged leather. There's several. Doc Barranti from Barranti Leather is a leather stitched cuff that has shell loops on it, much like a loop loader you would use for, like a cop duty gun in the 70s, right? Like 6 or 8 loops of where you can carry spare ammunition. I like that. Wrist cuff, maybe something you can throw on that's got 5 or 6 shells on your support side wrist, so you can load the gun much like a shotgun. Aside from that, good sights are non-negotiable to me. And I am a big fan of XS, and I'm a big fan of Skinner, and I have both. Yeah. And one of the things I see that, Henry and some of the other companies have done is they've gotten with XS and they've gotten with Skinner sights, and they've started to go, yeah, never mind the barrel mounted buckhorn sights. Let's actually give these people a peep sight they can use. Pick rails, red dot optics are great on a lever gun. They shine on a leather gun. Mainly because, like with a 357, you can actually keep your target in sight after you've sent one down range. The recoil's low enough that you can keep sight of your target through a red dot sight or a peep sight. So now I've seen companies, Midwest and some of the other, like a Magpul does some. You can get crazy with the accessories, just like you can on a modern sporting rifle.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, a sling and good sights, something to carry spare ammo in. But I mean, the options are limitless now, like they are with the AR platform. So, your mileage may vary. Do what you want. It's America.
Right.
Set your gun up however you want. But for me, I like a good sling and I like good sights.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't. I mean, I'm with you on that, and I'm the same way with a lot. I like a lot on my rifle, but pistol. I mean,
I
I
could
don't
see
know.
maybe your semi-auto nightstand gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, but carry day concealed carry. I don't know. I've seen too many and even the law enforcement officers with bad training, flagging people and flagging things,
Yeah.
using the light as a everyday flashlight. And yeah,
Well, and it goes back to Colonel Cooper's 4 safety rules, right? What's rule 2? Keep your finger off the trigger, right? What's rule 3? Don't point your gun at stuff. Don't need to be shot. That's yeah. So rule 2 and rule 3, when I see gun mounted lights, especially on pistols,
yeah,
bad stuff happens. Now on a lever gun, a pump shotgun, things like that. Okay, you're talking like a 1,000 lumen light with a big bezel on it. I can see where you can keep your muzzle off of people and still have enough light that you can you can operate it. And I'm a proponent of it, but for me, a sling and good sights takes precedent over a good light. Because if we think and like we apply our noodle to this situation, how does a bad guy know where you're at? Do they just feel around in the dark and go, there's a victim? Probably not. Thank you, Tom Givens, for that one. But they don't just stand out there and put their hands out and go, victim, and then grab them.
yeah.
This is in the ocean, right? So there has to be some degree of light for them to select you as a victim.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that some degree of light is probably sufficient for you to deploy a handgun, a rifle, a shotgun to mitigate that threat.
Right.
So I don't get wrapped around the axle about lights. But I will say a sling. I used to know a lot of guys that carried 870s and never carried a sling. And it was amazing. As soon as you went hands on, those people were like, I don't know what to do with my hands other than hold this gun.
Yeah.
Right. So a sling became really, really important. And sights, man, what's more important than hitting what you are shooting at?
Mm-hmm.
If you have to deploy a gun and if you have to deploy something to save your life or someone else's, what's more important than being really, really accurate with that on demand than sights? Which is, again, why I think that, red dot sights and shotguns and lever guns go hand in hand. Currently, I don't have any red dot optic mounted on a lever gun, but that is going to rapidly change. Because I literally had a conversation with a guy from Aimpoint today about my next optic. So
Awesome.
Anyway,
Awesome. Well, I guess that pretty much covers a lot of, what I guess we had to talk to you about. Anything else, Mr. Bryan, on your end?
No, I saw the article that you posted on your Facebook the other day with the Taurus Rossi, and I
Oh
went
man.
to Rossi. I mean, to Rossi, and I had forgotten about them for lever actions. No, everybody talks about the Henrys and
Hmm.
the Marlins and stuff, but I had forgot all about the Rossi, and I was actually impressed with what they've got over there.
Well, and I'll tell you, I have a relationship, a friendly relationship with Taurus and Rossi.
Mm-hmm.
I've done some consulting gigs with them. Um, and Caleb Giddings, I consider a friend. He's a good dude. Uh, however, I am in a space in life where I'm not afraid to tell you your baby's ugly. It doesn't affect me financially at this
Yeah.
point. Um, and what I will say is, when Rossi released the 454 Casull, that was about 10 years ago,
Mhm.
and I jumped on it quick. Actually, it was my birthday, and my dad jumped on it for me. Um, but I really, one of my first rifles was a Rossi Pump 22,
Mhm.
and now I think 1988, 1989, there was some real quality long guns coming out of there, and that kind of faded away for a long time.
Right.
They might have done some pump stuff but lever gun wise, I would say they are a neck and neck competitor to everything that's coming out right now. Um, Being in the LE realm, which I've been removed from that for about a year and a half, I can tell you that people in my circles, they recommend three guns: a Winchester, a Marlin, or a Rossi. The other ones, they say, yeah, they're great guns, but when we shoot high volume, they don't fare well.
Hmm.
So there are other brands out there that they've seen, and that's um, in the Midwest here. We still have a lot of rural counties that authorize lever guns for a patrol rifle. And as they're going through training, they see high volume, high round counts, and what they tell me is Marlin, Taurus Rossi, and then Winchester, and that's the only three we recommend. So that now the PSA stuff with magazines and all that stuff hasn't really hit. What we're talking about is rural patrol cops and deputies that have their deer rifle
Right.
for a patrol rifle. And what they're seeing is durability wise, those three really stand out. And a lot of the guys I know that are teaching with those rifles are like, hey, look, um, the the budget rifle, the Taurus Rossi budget rifle, it hangs right in there with them.
Yeah.
So, and knowing their staff and a lot of the, C-suite level people at Taurus Rossi, what I can tell you is they're on top of it,
Mhm.
and they're willing to pivot quickly.
Yeah.
I can't say enough good about that company. And 10 years ago, I would have been remiss to even mention, like, say the T word, right? But I've had several of their guns. I've shot a bunch of their guns a lot.
Mhm.
And that's where I think the break point is a lot of people go, that's a really nice gun. And I'm like, well, let's go shoot 500 rounds in a day and a half, 2 days. Let's see how good that gun holds up.
Right.
And most people never do that, which is fine.
Mhm.
So, that gun that starts with an H, I'm not going to bag on it.
Yeah.
If you're one of those people that shoots 20, 30 rounds a year, it's probably going to be fine.
Mhm.
Go throw 750 rounds over 3 days, it may have a problem.
Right. Yeah.
But is that a problem enough that I'm going to tell somebody not to buy one? Absolutely not. I told somebody at Shootist Holiday, I was out at the Shootist event. I shot my lever gun 357 more there in 2-3 days
Mhm.
than I had the previous 10 years.
Wow.
But the gun held up. It didn't, I had no issues with it. And it was surprising to me to see the number of names you would see in the industry right now that were shooting Rossi lever guns just for and running them out to 300 plus yards like it was
Wow.
nothing.
Wow.
And talking to Andy Larson from Skinner Sights, that's like, hey, I build sights for those because they fit the Marlin pattern guns and they do great work. So, anyway, yeah, that's a deep rabbit hole. But what I will tell you is if you are lever gun curious, there is nothing wrong with buying a pistol caliber Rossi 92.
Yeah.
There is accessories out there for them. There are companies that do secondary support. They have a fantastic warranty that I have used. My 454 Casull, about 3 rounds in, it split the forearm.
Hmm.
They replaced it in under a week.
Wow.
Wow.
And that was 10 years ago, right? So I have no qualms with those. Marlin stuff, Ruger owns Marlin now. They're doing great stuff. And if I were to tell somebody to buy your first lever gun, I'd go, hey, buy a 357. You can shoot 38s in it.
Mm-hmm.
All the accessories are available. Midwest, Magpul, all these different companies, Skinner Sights. Why not? You're going to be into a lever gun with a Rossi for, under $1,000,
Mm-hmm.
So go buy a good sling and put some good sights on it and have a ball.
Yeah. That's good. I enjoyed this conversation because it's something that at one of the ranges that I teach at, they've had over the last 2 years, they have brought in a boatload of lever actions, and every time I go in, hey, check out our new toy, like,
Yeah.
sweet, yeah, and just looking at all the accessories and the rails that are coming with them now, or if you want to stay with stock irons, the options are endless out there, and I think David and I, we've discussed after our last episode with you about the lever action and the viability of it for a home defense. And it's gotten our interest peaked up to, hey, something we might look into ourselves.
Well, here's a little thought. Like, let's take a off the rack cylinder bore Remington 870 and put a 1-ounce slug in it. What are you comfortable shooting? Like, what distance are you comfortable shooting that at?
With a rifled barrel.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe 100 yards, maybe 50 yards.
Okay.
Probably would be comfortable.
Okay. Same scenario. Let's take a 158 grain 357 mag that's moving almost 1900 feet per second with a decent set of sights. What distance are you comfortable engaging a human or deer size target with? 150?
Yeah.
To
Yeah,
200?
150, yeah.
Okay, what's the recoil difference across those two? Massive, right? that 1-ounce slug with an 870 is going to hammer you. What's that 158 357 going to do? It's going to go poof. Probably to the point you can keep whatever you're shooting at within the peep sight, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much velocity difference is there? Tremendous, right? What do you got to think about for holdover with a 1900 feet per second 158 grain versus a 1-ounce slug? You've got to think about it once you get past about 50 yards, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you got to think about with the 357? Okay, it's in there. Right? So to me, that's a massive, massive advantage they have. I can't say enough good about that. If you want to dive into that rabbit hole for just a few minutes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
So out at the Whittington Center, you guys familiar with the new Garmin Zero chronograph?
Yeah.
I bought one.
Oh, wow.
Because I love them. Well, I love all things Garmin, but somebody gave me a little skinny deal on it, and I bought it, and I immediately was like, wow, okay, this is cool. I've had labradars, I've had the windscreen Ohlers and all those. Setup takes about 45 seconds, and that's mainly to just like enter the bullet weight. But I took a 3-inch Model 13 357, and I fired 158 grain Remington 357 mag, high velocity. This is some ammo it was advertised as high velocity, but it just 357 mag ammo. And I shoot it across the chrono, and it's like 1080, 1100, right in there. I put it in a 16-inch Marlin, same load, bam, 1900, 1880. Wow. And I'm going, wow, okay, well, I do some calculations and I go, okay, well, that bullet drops about 9 inches at 300 yards. So on the side of the hill is a 2 foot by 2 foot piece of steel. It's about a torso sized piece of steel. And I hold it right at the top edge of the steel. And I'm sitting there monotonously shooting this steel. Well, like it's not even a challenge at this point.
Wow.
And I went, man, we sacrifice that much velocity out of a handgun. So then I grab 38 plus P, 158, same bullet. Mm-hmm. Out of a 3-inch gun, it's, 920, 900 right in there. I throw it in a lever gun, it's 1,300 feet per second pretty consistently. And I go, man, maybe with handguns, we're blowing velocity out at the end of the muzzle just for effect. I don't know. Whereas we put that in a carbine lever gun, and all of a sudden we get all the juice out of the squeeze. Mm-hmm. And if you look at that across, 30-30, 7.62 by 39, and some of these other cartridges, what you start to see is, man, that 357 lever gun is vicious. That you're getting all the powder burn, you're getting all the benefits of that cartridge that we wish we had in a pistol. So even if I take a 38 plus P that I can shoot out of a service size gun, 4-inch stainless model 64 or whatever, and I throw that in a lever gun, immediately I gain like 200-300 feet per second. So what's the downside of that? Then you go back in history and you start looking at how the West was won, and you start seeing a lot of Colt revolvers in 32-20 and Henry lever actions in 1873s and 32-20. Well, why was that? Because you had a cartridge that worked across both of those guns really well. Same with the 38-40 and all these other black powder cartridges. So it's not a new concept, but I really think with modern machining, modern specs, modern accessories, and now modern ammo, you can really get a lot out of that gun versus, am I going to punish my shoulder with a 1-ounce slug or triple aught buck? Or do I shoot what amounts to a Red Ryder BB gun at 1,900 feet per second, right? So anyway, okay. I am off my soapbox now.
No, that's great. I've learned a lot and enjoyed it.
Yeah. You're a wealth of knowledge, especially with your, that's why I had you on with the revolvers, because I know you are very loving of the revolvers, and I am too. And then when we talked about the uprise of the lever action last time, I said that would be another good one to bring on, because it's one, I don't think it's growing, but it's just not there yet. I don't think as far as replacing the modern sporting rifle as a self-defense weapon.
No, and I don't think it ever will. Kind of like I don't think you're going to ever see cops wholesale carrying revolvers again. That's not going to happen, right? You're not going to see police cars with lever guns as opposed to, a 14.5-inch AR. You're just not going to see that. For us normal Earth people, is that a bad option? If I live in Chicago, is it a bad option for me to have an 18-round Glock 17 and an AR-15 with a 30-round mag? Potentially, right?
Could be.
Look at what we saw in Kenosha.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares what happened? It was all about the AR, right? And that's not me jumping on a political thing at all. I don't care. Whatever that's all done. But imagine the public perception difference.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if I lived in New York State and I defended my home with an AR with a 5-round magazine in it, how much heat am I going to catch for having a semi-automatic rifle, if it's even legal?
Right. Versus
a 357 Marlin.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so there are considerations that us in the gun world, especially in the Midwest, that we don't like to acknowledge across the rest of the states of the union.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, most lever guns are 50 state legal. Most revolvers are 50 state legal. Most pump shotguns are 50 state legal.
Yeah.
You can dive off into the weeds about ammunition types for New Jersey or wherever.
Right.
But if I have a modern sporting rifle, is that, even if it's legal, is that going to be a problem? Potentially.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and that's even starting to trickle into gun-friendly states.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that start to really trickle into gun-friendly states where it's like, well, he used an AR-15, the evil gun. Well, I got to tell you, at 150 yards, a lever gun versus an AR-15, unless we're shooting prone, there's not a whole lot of benefit, right?
Right.
So, and that's something that Daryl Bulkey, my partner in American Fighting Revolver, and we talk about a lot is if you go into the hotel lobby to check in Philadelphia and you've got two 28-inch bird guns, over and under shotguns, who cares? That's like playing golf to people, right? Like that's, I'm a skeet shooter, I'm a bird shooter. Nobody cares. Yeah. Who cares if it's loaded with 3-inch double-aught? Like, is that any less effective? So that's, I think in the Pro 2A world, we get really wrapped around the axle about black and white stuff.
Yeah.
And the realities of a lot of these places that we go, or we're preaching this message, right, wrong, or indifferent, the public perception is not what it is in other places. So do I feel less armed if I go to, I don't know, California and I have a 357 lever gun, or I have a 30-round magazine in an AR? No, probably not. If I have a home defense shotgun that's loaded with number 4 buckshot, or do I have an AR?
Yeah.
So I think we're really getting to the point where we split hairs about stuff like that. And the bottom line is most of these quasi antiquated systems are extremely effective if you really know, and not even if you really know, but if you equate them to something similar,
right?
Lever gun, shotgun. That's, I think lever gun, shotgun, right? Revolver, handgun. The reality is you're probably going to run out of ammo, or you're going to run out of time before you run out of ammo. So is a 6-shot revolver that bad? Well, probably not. If we look at all the statistics and all the things,
right.
Are you really handicapping yourself? Not as much as people would have you think.
Yeah.
I'll get off this soapbox now, David and Bryan. I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah, well,
it's good.
yeah, and I wanted to bring this to light here with this episode is, maybe you thought about getting an AR, but afraid of the impression that others may think of you, or maybe you're in a gun unfriendly AR area, but you want to have a good rifle to defend your home with and stuff. This is the perfect weapon to replace that AR platform if you're not able to have that. So it was a good episode, and I thank you for coming on to talk about it. And I think it's going to be eye opening for some people. So.
Well, it's my pleasure. Hopefully, I didn't jump on too many soapboxes, but
no, yeah, thank you for sharing that information. That was a lot of information, and I think very helpful.
Yeah.
Well, I really I am not financially or whatever invested in lever guns.
Mm-hmm.
I am in revolvers mainly because I have a large collection of them, but as far as any companies telling me you've got to say this or that, I'm agnostic.
Yeah.
If you build a good product, I love your product.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a bias towards either one. And I got to tell you, I shoot a lot of carbine AR stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But under my bed over there is a lever gun. So that ought to tell you something. And I live in one of the most gun friendly states in the union.
Right.
And all of my home defense pistols are round.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is just familiarity, but also, how's that going to look when they take a picture in the crime scene photo of the weapon used to defend your home?
Right.
And it just looks like some little, that's what police officers carry. They're round guns. They're revolvers. That's harmless.
Yeah.
But that's not a personal stance. I mean, that's just the world we live in. And I got plenty of semi-autos. I love them. I absolutely love the fact that for sub $400, we can get a reliable striker fired semi-auto.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Do I want that on the front page of the paper if somebody kicks my door in? I don't know. Right. So anyway.
All right. Well, bonus question. And I know things have changed for you, and maybe this answer has also, but what do you do away from work or, retirement now that you do for relaxation, reflection? What's your hobby?
Oh, man. Well, I play guitar. That's one that kind of takes people off.
Yeah.
I do that. And then the other one lately is, away from the gun space and all that, is I've started to enjoy traveling, which I never thought I would. So now, granted, that involves guns a lot of times, but my wife and I, there's a couple of places around Oklahoma. We can drive 30 minutes in any direction from the metro of Oklahoma, and be in a rural community or, out of rural community. So there's a couple of places around here I like to go and just, kind of be normal earth person. Medicine Park, that's a big one. It's a little hippie community that, arts, and like the river runs through the middle of the town, and like to go down, just sneak away and go down there and just not have to deal with the hub, the like normal everyday stuff. You go to Southeast Oklahoma, there's cabins and big tall pine trees and lakes and rivers and all that. And I am a bit outdoorsy. We've got some family hunting land, and I'll go, hey, I'm going to go to the land for a couple of days and just like turn the cell phone off and disappear. Yeah. So that's been my, my most recent hobbies, but yeah, I don't have a hobby that doesn't involve guns in some way. So, but
So,
I'm looking for a new one. Crochet, knitting, I don't know, something. Um, no, my wife tells me the bad problem with my hobbies is I tend to monetize them
Yeah.
so that they pay for themselves, and then it becomes a job. So, uh, but yeah, Oklahoma is a great state. We've got, like I said, you can really literally go an hour in northwest, northeast, southwest, or southeast, and you're in a completely different state.
Yeah.
You would think. I mean, terrain wise, and there's a lot of things to do here that kind of shock people. Nobody's gonna like shoot arrows at you.
Right.
It's tame here, uh, but I can go from high desert to like high pines in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and I do ride bikes occasionally, like road bikes. Like I put on the spandex and go for a good bike ride. But hopefully you won't see too many pictures of that anymore.
Yeah, I actually love Oklahoma. I've been out there. I used to, when I drove over the road, I worked with a company just across in the Arkansas, Fort
Yeah.
Smith. And I actually had some friends that were down in Ardmore.
Uh-huh.
That one was a paramedic and the other one was a deputy sheriff down there. And then I traveled quite a bit. And well, a friend of mine was got out of the army, lived over in Yukon, and he taught.
That's where I live now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he taught ROTC there at Oklahoma University.
Yeah.
And know a couple other people out in that area, and it's just something that you got a real nice area out there. I've been up to the northeast, the southeast, south central, central. It's beautiful out there.
Yeah, and if it's not beautiful, just drive like 30 minutes in another direction. You'll find something, right? Like, yeah, I do. That's the main deal. Like biking and then travel, which I always hated traveling, and now I'm like, oh man, I got another trip coming up. Let's go. So,
yeah.
Especially being married now, I get to go, hey, you want to go to SHOT Show with me? We're gonna sure. But like it's a lot of fun. So
yeah. Well, that's good. So if anybody had questions, wanted to get with you on lever actions, revolvers, or just pick your brain, what's the best way to contact you?
So American Fighting Revolver. Now, Daryl Bulkey, DB, and I, we do a number of different training things, but American Fighting Revolver at gmail.com. That's a mouthful. Or Y, the letter Y, at AmericanFightingRevolver.com. But the website is AmericanFightingRevolver.com, and there's a support link. There's a contact us link there. We do everything, man. We do pistol classes. We do shotgun classes. We've got lever gun curriculum. It's not very in demand. And mainly we're carrying the revolver torch right now. And we have a subscription paywall site where we profile historical revolvers. And every Wednesday, Wheel Gun Wednesday, we do a profile on a Smith & Wesson, Colt, Ruger, Taurus, whatever it is. And we give you like the whole story, not just here's a Taurus 856 ultralight. It's an awesome gun. Moving on.
Yeah.
We give you kind of the lineage, the history, the designs, things like that on just this vast array of historical guns, calibers.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know the difference between 38 Smith & Wesson and 38 Special, right? Like there's a lot of that. I do some maintenance and gunsmithing tips, and we have to keep that behind a paywall, or, Uncle Zuckerberg decides that we don't deserve to talk to other people.
Right.
So, we do a subscription site. It's $5 a month, and there's a lot of information behind the paywall. Also, we have a product side, so we work with other manufacturers. We sell product on that website. Bowman pocket holsters, that's kind of been our forte for J frames and LCR revolvers. And we've got grips coming. That's where you can sign up for a class, is under the shop link at americanfightingrevolver.com. That's really our kind of our central hub. And we do all the major industry trade shows now. We walk around dressed to the nines and hand out swag and say, hey, and do consulting with gun manufacturers. So AmericanFightingRevolver.com is that's where you can get DB and I. And we're on the socials like Instagram, we're at AFR Official. Same thing on Facebook, AFR Official. For American Fighting Revolver Official. And we do every Wednesday, we throw up a picture of a historical revolver. You want to learn more about it, come behind the paywall and we will lead you into the rabbit hole of revolvers that we all think we can afford, but we also do normal people stuff there too. So, Taurus Ruger, things that you can buy over the counter. We do a lot of that too. So, and we were behind the scenes on the Smith & Wesson Ultimate Carry revolvers. So, with Jason Klossner from Lipsy's and Andrew Gore from Smith & Wesson, we did quite a bit of consulting. We did their media event. We're doing a media event with Colt in October. The Python experience down at Gun Talk or Range Ready, which Ryan Gresham, we're going to do an event at his facility. Yeah, we do the revolver roundup at Gunsight every year. We're doing an East Coast revolver roundup. This year it's the snub revolver roundup. It's almost sold out, so I don't know when this episode's going to drop, but it's August 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. At the Sawmill Training Facility in South Carolina. We're doing a snub revolver shoot, but if you have a 4-inch revolver, we won't kick you out. So, and we're going to try to do more of the revolver events on the East Coast. We also have an event. We're probably going to do a revolver roundup mid-year in Dallas. That's how big the demand is right now. So, yeah, AmericanFightingRevolver.com. If nothing else, sign up for our email list and it'll let you know where we're at and what we're doing.
Okay.
So.
All right. I don't know if this has changed since the last time you were on. Still doing the EDC belt co?
I still own EDC Belt Company. It is serviced now by Concealed Carry Inc. So if you guys know Jacob Paulson, Riley Bowman, Brian McLaughlin from Mountain Man Medical, that company conglomerate actually operates the company. Okay. I just still sit in the background and go, hey, that's okay. Do that. Yeah, those guys have been great. When I moved and some other stuff happened, we've got another manufacturer building those belts, and I really think they're building them better than I did.
Okay.
Even though mine were good. But if you got one pre-January of 24, that was me and another gal and a sewing machine. And now they're carrying the torch. But yeah, edcbeltco.com. It's still there. It's still chugging along. I just I'm not as involved with it as I once was, but
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, I've had Riley and I've had Bryan on. Excuse me. But I hadn't had Jacob on yet. He'll be my next victim.
Good. Jacob is a dear friend.
Yeah.
Love that guy. I can't say enough good about Jacob Paulson. So, and concealedcarryinc.com. They operate the website. So EDC Belt Co. It doesn't matter where you go to buy it. Langdon Tactical still carries them. They're the only outside vendor other than Concealed Carry Inc. or the website. So, and yeah, that product is still going strong. It's still as relevant as it ever was. I just don't have to sew them anymore, which is good.
Yeah. something off your plate so you can enjoy retirement a little bit more.
Yeah, I say that, and then I partnered up with Daryl Bulkey, and we're busier than I've ever been. So, well, we're as busy as I was with the belts. So
Okay.
the good news about it is I don't have to deliver product unless I got it in stock. So that's good.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Bryan, for your time this evening and coming on and talking to us about the viability of lever action rifles. And hopefully it's opened up some eyes, given some people some ideas and some, I need to check that out a little bit more. And appreciate your time again, coming back as a second time guest. You'll be our first second time guest.
Oh, cool.
We haven't had a repeat guest on yet, except for you now. So.
Man, I feel honored. I really do. I appreciate it. I remember starting into podcasting with off duty, on duty, and law dog and all that stuff. It's a massive undertaking, and I appreciate it. And anytime I get to be on a podcast, I really appreciate it because I've been on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work that people don't understand and don't see. So.
It most definitely is. I was a guest on Rob's firearms trainers one time, and after doing that, I thought about doing something more so for my students on a group setting. But then some people said, you told them what ideas I had, and they said, you need to do a podcast, and started thinking about it. Had done the episode with Rob, and like, okay. Kind of can get into this, and people have enjoyed it. They've enjoyed the guests that we've been able to bring on, the different topics that are not norm for the typical firearms podcast. So.
Yeah, and people have no idea, man. My podcast got a sponsorship one time, and I figured out that I was working for about 75 cents an hour for production. So that was good. So, man, you got to do it because you love it. And I really appreciate anytime anybody has me on because, like I said, I've been on the other side of the production and the post, and it's a grand undertaking. And especially for the information you guys put out, I feel like this generation of gun owners is spoiled.
Yeah,
because they can Google it and somebody's going to tell them what to do. Whereas, my era, we had to go buy a magazine or know somebody, right?
Yeah.
Or buy a book and whatever. But I'm glad there are people that are still out there carrying the torch. And the only other thing I would say to any of your listening audience is if you haven't yet, go buy a Rossi 357 lever gun and just have fun, man.
Yeah. That's going on my radar for my next purchase. Maybe I might can get a Christmas gift out of that. Maybe
you should.
Same here.
Yeah, and then put a Skinner barrel mounted sight on it. Put a butt cuff from Simply Rugged. Done.
Yeah.
Sling from get with Doc Baranti. Get a good sling. You'll be just in it to win it in no time.
All right. Well, thank you again, Bryan, and we hope you have a good
Brian.
evening, sir.
You too. Take care.